Mark learns that 5 years have passed since he experienced the reboot and returned to his dimension. After coming back, he flies to Telescria and discovers that Terra, once a toddler, is now a small child. Overcome with emotion, he begins to weep, realizing how much time he has lost with his daughter. He asks for her forgiveness, and she embraces him warmly. A sorrowful Eve joins in, holding him close as well. After putting Terra to bed, Mark and Eve sit down to talk about what happened during his time-traveling journey. Mark breaks down, confessing that by choosing to return to his daughter, he doomed the many lives he had saved in the alternate timeline. The weight of that decision crushes him, but Eve reassures him that he made the right choice. The next morning, they take Terra to school before heading off to meet Alan, now known as the Great Alan, following his promotion to the leader of the Coalition of Planets. He greets Mark with a tight embrace, overjoyed to see him again. Mark asks about Oliver, and Alan assures him that he is fine. Alan once again requests Mark's help in stopping Thragg, but Mark refuses without hesitation. He explains that his priorities have changed. He now wants to spend time with his wife and daughter rather than risk his life or theirs in another war. Later, Mark attends a party at Alan's house, where he finds himself deep in thought, gazing at the sky while others mingle. Oliver approaches and asks how he is doing. At first, Mark doesn't recognize him, but when he finally realizes who he is, emotions overwhelm him and he starts to cry. Oliver offers comfort, reassuring him that everything is all right. The next day, Mark and Eve go on vacation, and for the first time in a long while, Mark feels genuinely happy to have his family back. Upon their arrival, Mark attempts to kiss Eve, but she hesitates and reveals that she had been seeing someone while he was gone. Though visibly hurt, Mark listens as she explains. After some reflection, he tells her that he understands. Later, Mark tries to take Terra flying, hoping to share something special with her, but she becomes frightened. He gently reassures her, realizing that reconnecting with his daughter will take time. That night, Mark reads Terra a bedtime story, cherishing the quiet moments he has with her. After a day of relaxation, he and Eve begin to wonder about events on Earth, especially since they haven't heard from Nolan in a while. Concerned, they decide to check in. They later visit Alan in the hospital after an attempted assassination, where they see firsthand how dangerous things have become within the Coalition. Alan reassures them that he will recover, but the attack confirms that there are still threats lurking in the shadows. Afterward, Mark, Eve, and Terra travel to the moon to visit Nolan and Debbie. During their visit, Mark learns that his father has surprisingly developed a friendship with Rex. This revelation leaves him uneasy, given Rex's past. But Nolan seems convinced that Rex's leadership has stabilized Earth. Their visit is soon interrupted when Anissa, having heard of Mark's return, attempts to speak with him. However, before she gets the chance, Eve attacks her. Nolan swiftly steps in to send Anissa away. Later, Mark confides in Eve that he does not want his parents to know what Anissa did to him. Shortly after, Mark briefly returns to Earth, where he and Nolan meet with Rex. Rex explains all the progress he has made over the past 5 years, including uniting Earth under his rule and reducing crime. He claims that only Monster Girl and Monax oppose him, while everyone else has accepted his leadership. He has even managed to recruit some former villains, such as the Mauler twins, simply by giving them what they wanted. Mark listens carefully, unsure of what to believe. Later, he discusses Rex's leadership privately with his father in outer space, expressing his lingering distrust. Nolan, still convinced that Rex's rule has brought stability, tries to change Mark's mind, but Mark remains firm in his doubts. He believes that while Rex may have made improvements, his methods are still questionable. After bidding farewell to his parents on the moon, Mark and his family leave. As they travel, Mark reflects on how bizarre and chaotic his life has been. Eve misinterprets his thoughts, assuming he is passing judgment on her past affair with Cubian. Mark quickly apologizes, but Eve insists that she should be the one to apologize, as she was the one who made the mistake. Their conversation remains unresolved, but they manage to move forward. Upon arriving back on their new home planet, Mark hesitantly asks Eve if she would consider staying hidden there forever. However, before they can settle into their new life, their peace is violently interrupted. Onan and Ursal, two of Thragg's newest Viltrumite children and the only known pair of Viltrumite twins, launch a surprise attack. Onan immediately threatens Terra, provoking Mark into action. Without hesitation, he attacks Onan while Eve takes off with their daughter in an attempt to protect her. However, as Mark fights Onan, he sees Ursal chasing after Eve and Terra. Realizing the danger, Mark quickly overpowers Onan and flies at full speed toward Ursal, preparing to strike before she can harm his family. As the battle intensifies, Eve convinces Mark to take Terra, knowing he can fly faster and ensure their daughter has the best chance of escaping. Mark reassures Terra, urging her to be brave as they speed away from Onan. However, the rapid flight proves too much for her, and she begins struggling to breathe. Forced to slow down, Mark realizes he must stand and fight Onan. The battle quickly turns desperate. Onan proves to be a formidable opponent, and, in a swift maneuver, snatches Terra away from Mark. Without hesitation, he drops her from a terrifying height. Mark breaks away from Onan in a frantic attempt to rescue his daughter, but she vanishes from sight. Panic grips him, but before he can search for her, he finds Eve locked in combat with Ursal. Mark wastes no time, knocking Ursal into the ground with a powerful strike. As he lands, Eve, battered but determined, tells Mark that she believes Terra is still alive. Their hope renewed, they manage to capture Onan and soon find Terra next to Oliver's lifeless body, standing before them as Thragg himself looms over her. Desperate, Mark demands that Thragg release Terra. However, Thragg mocks him, stating that heroes don't kill. Without hesitation, Mark proves him wrong, killing Onan instantly. The brutal act enrages Thragg, who in a blind fury rips Mark in half with his immense strength. Before Eve can react, Ursal returns and severely wounds her as well. Satisfied with their brutal work, Thragg orders Ursal to leave them to die slowly. However, using sheer willpower, Eve unlocks the full extent of her abilities, tapping into her deepest reserves. She heals both herself and Mark, restoring them to full strength. Once recovered, Mark sees Oliver's lifeless body and something inside him shifts. His hesitation vanishes, and he declares that he is ready to defeat Thragg once and for all. Eve, now equally resolute, agrees. Oliver's death becomes the final push Mark needs, and he commits to the battle against Thragg. Meanwhile, Alan mobilizes the coalition of planets, assembling their forces for war. As the conflict escalates, the Coalition and the Viltrumite Empire position their fleets near the sun, preparing for the decisive battle. Soon they spot Thragg leading his army of Viltrumite children, and with that, the Second Viltrumite War begins. In the depths of space, a fateful battle is about to begin. The Coalition fleet gathers near the sun, but suddenly on the horizon, Thragg appears, leading his army of Viltrumite children with ruthless intent. They know no fear. They show no mercy. This war will decide everything. Mark, Alan, and the entire coalition stand ready to fight with everything they have. But will it be enough? Who will survive, and who will fall? The Second Viltrumite War begins now, and the story continues in Part 2, ***.